There is a recipe for narcissism and personality disorders. It is not something that is coming from nowhere. To create narcissistic abuse structures in human society, all that has to be done is to create conditions that will build trauma in people. Then the society is full of narcissism and codependency and all other disorders. I wonder if this is why we have so many manufactured problems in the world. And also why there is only bad news on the news. It is there to create trauma on different levels. That then leads to disordered society. I used to think that government structures and institutions are there to protect us, and they have our best interest on their mind. Then things go wrong, I thought, and maybe there are some narcissists that infiltrate those structures, and we have those corrupted structures that you look at, and think to yourself that nothing can be done here, it is just too many variables and too many problems to be able to untangle all that. I do not know why I have not thought of those structures being created in a way that will look like they are doing some good, but in fact they are created with an intention of creating traumas and division. That is how narcissists and psychopaths operate, so that is how it is in many cases, not all, but the majority. Even if the structure was set up with good intentions, narcissists infiltrate it and destroy, invert, and there is nothing that can be done there anymore. It is funny really, because when I think about it, I know that I have always known this on some level, and it is just natural to me and obvious that that is often the case, but then on another level I too eagerly think that all people have good intentions, just sometimes things go wrong. I think it is coming from the fact that in my home everything was interpreted as bad and awful, so I as a child started to be on a mission to prove that things are good and people are good. And I think we all are in two minds about many things. It comes from what we know to be true inside. Intuitively we know very well when something is not right, and it is not some sort of woo-woo stuff, it is just because we have more senses, just are too gaslit to be able to trust them. It is no different to not trusting your eyes and ears, only that is just more blatant form of gaslighting. We are very much gaslit with intuitive senses. But to me, it is just the same as the sense of smell. You know that the food is off because you can smell that. You know the pattern of the smell when this type of food is good and when it is bad. With intuitive knowledge we are conditioned very early to not use that, and often are ridiculed when we say those things, that we feel that something is off. You are being called childish or funny. So you either stop trusting those senses, which is pretty bad for you and makes you a prisoner of the social matrix that operates on hard rules, regulations, and codependency narcissism structure, or you trust your senses and your world operates on a completely different set of rules. Because you simply feel what to do and what not to do. What to say and what not to say. Even if according to hard rules, you will be better off talking from the script that everybody uses most of the time unconsciously. The world is structured in superiority-inferiority dance. It is everywhere. That's how the social matrix is built. And especially now when the entire world is connected, it almost feels like there is nowhere to hide and everyone behaves in pretty much the same way. It is as if when somebody says this thing, you are expected to say that thing, and then when they ask you that thing, you are expected to answer in a specific way. You think that way or not, you'd better speak according to the script if you are part of the matrix. But then you can just step away from all that. And this is where you can be free. I used to think that maybe that workplace will be different, maybe here will be better. But it is not. Unless something is disconnected totally from social programming and is not yet another narcissistic structure redefined and looking smoother and nicer, then you can find a different world, but it is unlikely to find something like that in my opinion. The world is too narcissistic, to the very core. Rather you have to create your own bubble yourself. On the same planet, in the same village or town, but with a totally different emotional climate, your own microclimate that changes everything. Your perception is changed, and the world you see is changed. When you are free from hearing conversations full of judgment and complaining, and gossip and tragic news, you start to see how wonderful this world is. You live in the same physical reality, but in a completely different mental, emotional reality. And this reality is much more real. You start to see what is true, and what is not. You start to see how beautiful the trees around you are. You start to see the beauty of houses and even people's faces, the color of their eyes, tone of their voice, at least those kind ones, and you can actually enjoy the food you are eating in a completely different way. That is how reality without narcissistic abuse looks like and feels like. You see without those muddy glasses that distort everything. If you are part of the social matrix, you live in distortion, you live in a constant narcissistic abuse, where you run and run to please people around that can never be pleased. And you might not be noticing that you are doing that. You go to parties that you hate only so that people do not gossip about you when you are absent, or say that you act as if you are better than them, or that you do not fall out of the conversations at work on Monday, because all your colleagues go there, and you would feel alienated if you do not go. Life is a constant obligation then, and sucks if you let yourself feel it. And it is so ingrained in us that we cannot even see that it is all just a prison for the mind and the soul. It is very real. You have to talk in a certain way, you have to dress in a certain way, you have to buy certain brands, you have to go to certain places. And all those things might be really good and pleasant things in themselves, and you might want to do them anyway, but you might not be noticing that you feel forced to do that to fit in with others. You do not do that as a free person. I realize this for myself. I was forced to keep a certain level of status when in certain places, positions, and belonging to certain groups. And most of the things that I did maybe were things that I genuinely liked, but the most of the pleasure was sucked out of those things because I felt forced to go to those places and act in a way that I did not feel myself, and not chosen to go there in a way that I wanted to. This creates a false experience of yourself for you and for others. You act in a way that you know is accepted, but it is disconnecting you from your soul. You are being a social robot to a very high degree and lose your ability to truly connect with people. And that is what we really long for, in my opinion. But then everywhere you go you have this metal-sounding interactions that instead of nourishing the souls of both sides, make you feel more anxious and disconnected. You start to accept that this is just how the world is, and these are the rules you have to play by. Or you disconnect from all that and start to build your own reality with your own thoughts and values. Life first feels terrible because you do not fit in, people define you as weird, or are worried about you because you changed so much, and then if you keep going they get used to new you. You still do not fit in with them, but you belong with yourself, and slowly you start to see that there are plenty people like you around, only you have not noticed them because the Matrix agents were taking all your attention. It is all interesting to see how the only thing that changes is perception, and everything changes.